All right, we are live. We're looking at this post by a Greylock partner. I believe it's called the New Moat. Let's see if Grok can find it. Modern economic moat, sustainable competitive advantage businesses use to maintain market dominance in today's rapidly evolving landscape. Economic moat, term popularized by Warren Buffett, describes a company's ability to maintain a competitive edge through barriers like brand strength, network effects, or proprietary technology. Suited for the digital age where AI, data, and platform dynamics dominate, unlike traditional modes, Coca-Cola's brand or Pfizer's patents, these leverage technology, user ecosystems, and capital integration to stay ahead in volatile markets. Here are the defining elements of modern modes with emphasis on what's cutting edge proprietary data and AI integration. Unique high quality data sets, train AI models that competitors can replicate easily. Meta's heavy investment in AI infrastructure creates a compute moat where its data centers and proprietary algorithms give it an edge in AI-driven products like smart glasses. Expose highlights proprietary data as a moat, noting that logical algorithms resistant to large language models are critical. Network effects and distribution. Platforms like Amazon or Alibaba thrive on network effects where more users increase the platform's value. Amazon's marketplace, enhanced by AWS and Prime, creates a self reinforcing ecosystem that's hard to disrupt. E commerce dominance in China similarly benefits from its vast user base and merchant network. In the creator economy, influencers like Mr. Beast or the Sidemen build moats through loyal audiences, turning their platforms into distribution channels for ventures like Mr. Beast Burger or Upside. Your prior questions about creators running companies show this trend's relevance. Okay, really cool. Grok is showing memory over here. Embedded finance as a moat. Capital is becoming a platform moat. Companies integrating financial services like lending or payment systems create sticky ecosystems. Capital is becoming a platform moat. Companies integrating financial services like lending or payment systems create sticky ecosystems. For instance, platforms offering embedded finance can support small businesses with cash flow solutions, building trust and dependency that AI can't replicate. Integrating financial services like lending or payment systems create sticky ecosystems. This aligns with the interest in venture funds like 444 Capital, where creators leverage their influence to fund startups, creating financial ecosystems around their brands, trust, and brand in the creator economy. Ryan Reynolds, Rihanna, use personal brand to build moats, turning followers into customers. Your questions about influencer-led businesses underscore this shift. High switching cost and ecosystem lock-in. Microsoft ServiceNow create moats through integrated software ecosystems. Microsoft's inclusion of OpenAI's tech in its suite makes its products indispensable for businesses, while ServiceNow's 98% customer retention rate stems from its complex, tailored solutions. Logging in fans across touchpoints. This connects to your interest in Formula One revenue streams where fan engagement via F1 TV and events build a similar ecosystem. Okay, this is really cool. If we keep if we keep doing a lot of research, the way Grok is using memory now, this is going to be really interesting. This is going to be really interesting. How it's going to keep referencing your older queries and older questions and the rabbit holes that you have already dug into in the past. That is really interesting. Examples of companies with new modes: tech giants Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, AI compute mode, Amazon network effects, AWS semiconductors, ASML, NVIDIA with technological modes via EUV lithography and AI chip dominance. Creator Ventures, Mr. Beast, Feastables, and Logan Paul, KSI's Prime Hydration, leveraging audience, trust, and distribution. Finance integrated platforms, Shopify or Square using embedded finance to retain merchants. Why it matters. The new mode is about resilience in a world where AI can copy features quickly and competition is global. Yeah, this is the big one. Companies must combine data, trust, and capital to stay ahead. For creators, the mode lies in converting influence into scalable systems, as seen in your examples of Charlie D'Amelio's 444 Capital, Casper Lee's creator. Okay, let's see if somebody was, what is this? The economic impact of wipe coding. Not if, not when, not half baked. It's already here. The world of software is changing because 3 billion more people can now code, while professional engineers can code 100x faster. I know because I do. Anima app, AI powered design to code. Excited about the future of front end UX and AI. We went from Copilots to Cursor, Windsurf, AI native IDEs, and Codo AI Tab 9 agents, then crossed the lines to non engineers with Bolt, Replit, Lovable, and Versal's V0 prompt, get code, see it running, share, and it's exploding. Tipping point. This piece was unlocked thanks to Anthropic, Claude Sonnet 3.5's code quality, now followed by Google's Gemini and OpenAI. LLMs now produce code that works out of the box 80 to 90% of the time. The next jump is tools, APIs, MCP, A2A agents get context and take actions. Need a DB, an agent will configure Superbase in a minute. Open source Firebase alternative. Figma design, Anima brings it in as pixel perfect code deployment. Netlify is ready for you. I've heard about Anima before. Netlify, modern websites and applications for status updates. The cloud infra is ready for agents. The following jump is multiple layers. A single shot will generate increasingly complex solutions from a single instruction or a spec after making sure it knows what you're asking. Front-end flows, edge cases, business logic, back-end, security, everything all at once. How the space matures. Vertical specialities will come next. Vibe coding platforms are generalists today. Everyone still handles the basic flows like GitHub integration, security. The next phase is domain-specific tools, building a game, a marketing side, internal tools. Today, you go to one of the leading tools. Tomorrow, Retool and Super Blocks just claim the land of internal tools. Expect Wix, Webflow, Contentful. Media growing demand for engaging personalized content at scale, and others to claim the land of marketing sites with SEO optimization and CRM integrations. Gaming, Unity, Unreal Engine, maybe even Sony and Nintendo America. VR, Meta should make a move. Agents, OpenAI, Anthropic, Mistral, product and design, Anima. Yeah, Abhishek will, hey, we'll plug Anima everywhere. Will help product teams build faster and take part in SDLC. Then finance, mobile, Web3, name a space. Each vertical should have dedicated tools to build software with AI because 3 billion people are coming. Is it a passing trend? No. Just like you can undo calculators, spreadsheets, wipe code is here to stay. And it's just the tip of the iceberg. Who are the winners? The whole chain of supply will benefit. LLM providers, cloud infrastructure, application layer, service providers, agencies, and consultancies. IBM, Deloitte, PwC, Accenture, all will deliver faster and increase margins. Startups will get to market in weeks and with no funding, raising only for distribution, not for tech. Early adopters will have an unfair advantage across the field. The losers, slow movers, will be outpaced by AI first teams. High margin SaaS without a strong moat will be copied by smaller, faster teams that eat their market. What makes a good moat in the new world? Proprietary data, distribution, and network effects, trust and brand logic, algos that LMs can replicate easily, and deeply embedded systems with high switching costs. The economic impact. It's the end of the software world as we know it. When 3 billion new builders each add even a sliver of value, say $10 per week in net new productivity, we are already looking at 1.5 trillion a year. And that's just the entry fee. Faster iteration loops, 100x for pros, infinite for people who never had access to code before, will bend GDP curves. Entire categories of nice to have software will explode into must have micro solutions as development cost and time approach zero. Hyper personalized apps for a corner bakery, disposable software built just to answer a chat question, on demand tooling for everyone that wasn't worth the dev time yesterday. That democratized velocity doesn't just redistribute opportunity, it expands the pie. The amount of software created today is just a tiny slice of tomorrow's total. 3 billion people will code soon. Think of the economic implications. Okay, very interesting. But the new mode that we are looking for is apparently by Greylock. So let's see if Grok was able to pull that. No. Alright. The new mode by Greylock partners. All right, let's see. New modes. Okay. Concept introduced by Jerry Chen, partner in Greylock. 2023 as updating his 2017 framework on economic modes. Explores how businesses can build sustainable competitive advantages in the new era of AI, particularly with the rise of LLMs like GPT-4 and Llama. Core idea: the new modes describe modern competitive advantages that combine traditional business strengths with AI-driven systems of intelligence. While AI is a powerful enabler, it's not a moat by itself due to its replicability. Instead, enduring value lies in integrating AI with classic modes like scale, network effects, and strong go-to-market strategies. Strong go-to-market strategies. Okay. Scale, network effects, and strong go-to-market strategies. Key elements of the new modes. Traditional modes are still critical. Economies of scale, large-scale operations, lower costs as seen in SaaS and cloud services like AWS or Microsoft, which leverage AI to enhance efficiency. Network effects, platforms gain value as more users join. Example, social networks or messaging apps like WhatsApp. Brand and trust. Trust remains a moat, especially in low trust digital world. A trust network could be a future differentiator. Deep IP proprietary data. Unique data sets of specialized AI models create barriers as seen in companies like Instabase, a Greylock backed firm. AI is an enabler, not a moat. LLMs are table stakes, widely accessible, and not inherently defensible. The moat lies in how AI is applied through workflows, data integration, or customer specific automation. Example, Treat, a Greylock funded startup, uses generative AI to create personalized product photos by integrating with proprietary customer data, a harder to replicate advantage. System of intelligence. These are AI powered applications that aggregate, analyze, and act on data sitting between systems of engagement and systems of record. They reduce human intervention and drive automation. Example, Instabase's platform serves enterprises by processing data across industries, building a moat through customer driven product expansion. GTM excellence. AI doesn't replace the need for strong GTM. Companies must master product market fit and distribution to deliver value, ensuring AI driven products are effectively marketed and sold. AI doesn't replace the need for strong GTM. Companies must master product market fit and distribution to deliver value. Emerging trends. Chat as a front door. Chat interfaces may become central to user interactions, but their dominance is debated as they don't align with all human cognition patterns. Scale versus specialization. The race for larger chat as a front door. Chat interfaces may become central to user interactions, but their dominance is debated as they don't align with all human cognition patterns. The race for larger models favors giants with capital, but smaller domain specific models can create niche modes. Why it matters. In an AI driven world, the democratization of LLMs via open source models. GTM excellence. Did we miss anything? System intelligence as enabler, not moat. Traditional modes are still critical. Emerging trends. The democratization of LLMs reduces technological barriers, making traditional modes like scale, trust, and GTM more critical. Chen argues that the new modes are the old modes, emphasizing fundamentals over AI hype. Startups must focus on workflows, data integration, and customer trust to build defensible businesses. The new modes. Relevance to your interests. Given your prior questions about creators running venture funds and innovative business models, new modes framework applies to creator-led ventures. Creators like MrBeast or KSI build modes through trust and audience loyalty, akin to Chen's emphasis on brand and network effects. Their ventures, Feastable's Prime Hydration, could integrate AI for personalized marketing or data-driven product development, aligning with Greylock's focus on proprietary data as a moat. Okay, let's look into the new modes. Whoa, right here. Jerry Chen. Why systems of intelligence are still the next defensible business model. What did we exactly say about system of intelligence? These are AI-powered applications that aggregate, analyze, and act on data sitting between systems of engagement and systems of record. They reduce human intervention and drive automation. These are AI powered applications that aggregate, analyze, and act on data sitting between systems of engagement and systems of record, reduce human intervention, and drive automation. Drive automation. Jerry Chen searches for ambitious founders who are redefining enterprise software. 6 years ago, I published the new Moats. Very interesting. 6 years ago, I published the new moats, why systems of intelligence are the next defensible business model. In that blog, I postulated that startups would be able to build defensible moats using AI. In the light of all the developments in the past year, I want to revisit this framework and see what still holds true and what has changed. I won't rehash each and every technical breakthrough and changes in AI over the past 6 years. That has been well documented in countless blogs, tweet storms, and an infinite number of AI generated avatars in my Instagram feed. But I will, of course, point out that we wouldn't be here without transformer models, first described in the Google Brain paper, which changed the game for language models. Progress went from gradual to rapid fire in the intervening years, and today's AI landscape is, to borrow from a recent interview with my Greylock colleague and Inflection AI co-founder and CEO, Mustafa Suleiman, surreal. Mustafa Suleiman is now leading AI at Microsoft. Large language models like GPT-4, Palm 2, and Llama are tangible examples of the way AI is becoming the enabling technology of this moment. I'll point to essays written by my partners Sam Mutamedi and Reid Hoffman, which dive into the current and potential impact of foundational models here and here. Orienting oneself amid this Cambrian explosion of AI startups requires asking a basic question: where is the enduring value in the market? Or to ask myself a riff on the same question as 6 years ago, where are the new moats? To illustrate my thinking, I have taken a red pen to the original systems of intelligence framing, updating and amending predictions, posing new questions, and throwing out others. I hope this exercise helps to keep us grounded as we navigate the current AI hype cycle. In business, I look for economic castles protected by unbreachable moats. In business, I look for economic castles protected by unbreachable moats. Warren Buffett. To build a sustainable, profitable business, you need strong defensive moats around your company. This rings especially true today as we undergo one of the largest platform shifts in a generation, as applications move to the cloud, are consumed on iPhones, Echoes, and Teslas. What is an Echo? Are built on open source and are fueled by AI and data. These dramatic shifts are rendering some existing modes useless and leaving CEOs feeling like it's almost impossible to build a defensible business. In fact, open source AI models like Llama, Alpaca, Vicuna Wool, we learned about that during our stream on Laura Piana. Red Pajama prompted the infamous leaked Google memo: we have no moat and neither does OpenAI. Wow. Prompted the infamous leaked Google memo: we have no moat and neither does OpenAI. The Google memo laments that the proprietary advantages held by Google and OpenAI are being disrupted by open source, and in particular the release of Meta's Llama mode, which gave birth to an ecosystem developing and improving upon the seed the Llama has become. The memo concludes that paradoxically, the one clear winner in all of this is Meta, because the leaked model was theirs. They have effectively garnered an entire planet's worth of free labor. Because the leaked model was theirs, they have effectively garnered their entire planet's worth of free labor. What is the moat of Meta's Llama against OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google? However, Meta isn't the only beneficiary of this development. The entire market of startups, big and small, also have an advantage. In my original New Modes essay from 6 years ago, I was correct in pointing out the power of open source, but I was wrong to assume that it only favored the big cloud. This is kind of the interesting thing about writing up predictions, that it's good to have an opinion. It's good to have a thesis. I think people also talk about the problems with VCs where they come up with a thesis and then try to validate the thesis, which is very kind of weird because you should be updating your thesis with the market. You should be updating your, it's like having an ideology, having a framework of how you believe life works. You should have a thesis and then test it with the market, and based on that update your thesis, update your framework. And that's how we grow up as adults, where we keep updating, like with every passing year, with every stage of our life, with every new thing happening, we are constantly making important decisions, and we keep updating, refining our framework of how life works, of how to live a good life, as we test against the market, as random things are thrown in front of us. And similarly with VC, they should ideally have a thesis and then keep testing it and keep refining a thesis. But instead, what ends up happening is they come up with a thesis, they prepare a thesis, and then go on to invest in startups that directly validate that thesis only, which is very interesting. But this is actually cool. Like what VCs try to do over here is they have an opinion, they have a strong opinion, held loosely, held flexibly, some might say, but you need to have a strong opinion so you can actually get reaction from the market and understand where you went right, where you went wrong. Because unless you don't, whoa, my grammar is messing up over here. But if you don't have a strong opinion, you will not get strong reactions and you won't be able to learn about the world, learn about the market. But if you have a strong thesis and if you get a lot of strong reactions to it, you can really understand that, am I leaning right? Am I right? Am I wrong? So that is really good. Like having written your thoughts in public is really helpful because you actually learn. I was correct in pointing out the power of open source, but I was wrong to assume that it only favored the big cloud providers who could provide open source services at scale. On the contrary, this new generation of AI models can potentially shift power back to startups as they can leverage foundation models, but both open source and not in their products. In fact, some of the early beneficiaries of this new way of AI are existing companies and startups that have been able to add generative AI into their applications like Adobe, Abnormal, Coda, Notion, Cresta, Instabase, Harvey, even up case text and format. I'm guessing after Adobe, Coda, and Notion, all of these others are Greylock portfolio companies. To paraphrase Darwin, what is not the strongest, largest, most capitalized, or most well-known of companies that survives, but the most adaptable to incorporating AI? What is not the strongest of companies that survives, but the most capable to incorporating AI? In other words, this memo doesn't so much pose a question of whether there are moats, but of where value accrues in the stack. Historically, open source technology has reduced value in whichever layer it is available and moved the value to adjacent layers. For example, an open source operating system like Linux or Android lessened the dependence of apps on Windows and iOS and moved more of the value to the app layer. This doesn't mean there is zero value in the open sourced layer. Windows and iOS definitely capture value. At the same time, you can still create value and attack castles in the cloud with open source business models, as we have seen achieved by the likes of Databricks, MongoDB, and Chronosphere. This doesn't mean there is zero value in the open source layer. Windows and iOS definitely capture value. At the same time, you can still create value and attack castles in the cloud with open source business models, as we have achieved by the likes of Databricks, MongoDB, and Chronosphere. This is very interesting because it's like, yeah, castles in the cloud. How do you attack them? You just make their work open source. Okay. Open source strategy and ecosystem growth. Models are open source, unlike the proprietary models of OpenAI, Anthropic, Google. Developers, researchers, and businesses to freely access, customize, and build on Llama, fostering a broad ecosystem. Permissive licensing with some restrictions for companies with over 700 million monthly users, encourages adoption by startups and academics, potentially outpacing closed models and innovation velocity. Paywall API model restricts access, making Llama's availability a threat to its revenue model. Llama 2's release challenged ChatGPT's dominance by offering a powerful free alternative. Claude's safety focused, closed model limits customization. Llama's open weights enable broader experimentation, appealing to developers, prioritizing flexibility over Anthropic's ethical guardrails. Gemini's integration with Google's ecosystem is a strength, but its closed nature contrasts with Llama's open source appeal, which could attract developers seeking independence from Google's infrastructure. Llama 3.1 rivals GPT-4 in benchmarks and is accessible via AWS, Azure, and Hugging Face, driving adoption. Meta's Llama API simplifies integration, undercutting OpenAI's API business. Efficiency and accessibility. Llama models are designed for efficiency, running on less powerful hardware than competitors' models. For instance, Llama 13B can operate on an NVIDIA Tesla V100 GPU, and smaller models are optimized for edge devices like mobiles. Okay. Designed for efficiency, got it. Proprietary data integration with Meta's ecosystem, open source, vast proprietary data from Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, system of intelligence. Llama powers personalized social integrated AI experiences. GPT-4's multimodal capabilities are strong, but OpenAI lacks Meta's social media data scale, limiting its availability to personalize at the same level for social interactions. Claude's focus on safety and neutrality doesn't capitalize on user data for personalization. Google's data from search and YouTube is formidable, but Llama's integration into Meta social platforms creates a unique moat in social commerce and user engagement. Go to market developer community. Community-driven innovation, aligning with Chen's point that strong GTM is a moat. Hugging Face and supporting them with tools like Llama API. Meta builds a developer ecosystem that rivals proprietary providers. Open source ethos also aligns with regulatory trends like the EU AI Act's support for open source AI. Robust with paywall, limiting access. Llama's free models attract a wider developer base, as seen in community projects like running a Llama on a Pixel 6. Anthropic's enterprise focus and safety first approach appeal to fewer developers than Llama's open flexible models, which encourage experimentation. LlamaCon 25, undercutting OpenAI by expanding Llama's API, enabling developers to build apps with minimal code, strengthening its developer moat. Multimodal capabilities and scalability. Limitations of Llama's performance gaps. Lags in complex reasoning task. Rumored GPT-5 and Google Gemini 1.5 Pro maintain an edge in raw capability. Hallucination issues. Compute and talent. Struggle to maintain a lead in open weights, suggesting OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google's superior compute and talent pools pose challenges. Regulatory ethical risk. Misuse by propagandists, and Meta's open source label is debated due to restrictions, potentially weakening its regulatory advantage. Combining open source accessibility, system of engagement with Meta's proprietary data and GTM, system of intelligence. System of engagement, system of intelligence. This disrupts OpenAI's revenue-driven model, Anthropic's safety-centric approach, and Google's ecosystem lock-in by prioritizing developer freedom and cost efficiency. However, Meta must address performance gaps and ethical concerns to sustain its edge. Okay. Is the latest Llama model less powerful than the latest ChatGPT model? Let's see. That's a good question because this involves a lot of interesting things. So Grok will do some analysis over here. We need to compare the performance capabilities and intended use case based on available information up to June 25. Latest model is Llama 4. Variants like Scout Maverick and the anticipated Behemoth. April 25, Scout, 10 million token context window. running efficiently on single H100 GPU, outperforms Mistral 3.1, Behemoth anticipated high parameter model not yet fully detailed, architecture, capabilities, benchmarks, outperforms 4.5, 3.7 some tasks, particularly long text summarization, code search. Scout's 10 million token context is unmatched by most competitors. GPT-5 integrates O3 technology reasoning focus with and unifies O series and GPT series into a tiered intelligence systems, likely a dense transformer model with significantly more parameters than Llama 4. 1.1 to 2 trillion based on GPT-4 scale. Advanced multimodal, excels in reasoning, coding, and creative task, offers tiered intelligence levels via subscription, free plus pro with web search and file image upload support. Significant improvements over 4.5 accuracy, reasoning, and multimodal processing. Raw performance. Okay. Surpass 4.5. Wait, it's talking GPT-5. It's not even out there. Okay. Which already reduced hallucination rates to 37.1. Improve reasoning and multimodal tasks. Dominance in complex reasoning, coding, and multilingual tasks, given OpenAI's focus on O3 technology and chain of thought architecture. Verdict likely outperforms in raw power. Edge gives it an edge, handles text, image, audio, and potentially more. Superior performance and visual understanding. Efficiency and cost. Llama 4 is significantly less resource intensive and cheaper, allowing Meta's mode of accessibility. Modest hardware. Proprietary pay-per-use model with higher costs, especially for high intelligence tiers. 18x more expensive than Llama 270B for similar task. 18x, wow. Open source nature makes it more accessible and customizable. Key mode per chance framework, customizability and accessibility. Closed source, accessible via API subscription. Limited customization but easier out of the box integration. Relevance to new modes. GTM excellence, distribution via cloud platforms and API strengthens its developer ecosystem, aligning with Chen's GTM mode. Okay. In our blog 6 years ago, we highlighted how the adjacent layer that benefited more often than not was the big cloud platforms. But with respect to open source foundation models, we can see that some of the value that would have been captured by OpenAI and Google can now be shifted to apps and startups infrastructure around the LLMs. OpenAI and Google can still capture value, and the ability to build and run these giant models at scale is still a mode. Building a developer community and network effects is still a mode, but the value captured by these modes is lessened in a world where open source alternatives exist. In this post, I'll review some of the traditional economic modes that technology companies typically leverage and how they are being disrupted. I believe that startups today need to build systems of intelligence, AI-powered applications, the new modes. Businesses can build several different modes, and over time, these modes can change. The following list is definitely not exhaustive, and fair warning, it will read like a bad B-school blog. Bad B-school blog. Traditional economic modes. Some of the greatest and most enduring technology companies are defended by powerful modes. For example, Microsoft, Google, and Facebook, now Meta, all have modes built on economies of scale and network effects. At this transitional moment of technology, the critical components to building worthwhile AI products are foundation models, which are trained on billions, trillions of parameters and cost hundreds of millions of dollars to train, and the computing resources needed to power them. If it were not for the release of Llama, I would imagine most of the value would accrue to companies like Google or startups like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Inflection that have. It's funny how they mention their portfolio companies that have access to capital and GPUs to train these models. One question ahead of us is the balance between models with trillions of parameters versus smaller models. If the race favors bigger and bigger models, perhaps scale becomes the ultimate mode. Economies of scale. The bigger you are, the more operating leverage you have, which in turn lowers your cost. SaaS and cloud services can have strong economies of scale. You can scale your revenue and customer base while keeping the core engineering of your product relatively flat. As vital computing partners to startups developing foundation models, the big three cloud providers, AWS, Microsoft, and Google, are leveraging economies of scale and network effects to stay competitive in the current AI boom. Training AI models has become a data center scale problem, combining computer networking into a giant building scale supercomputer. The reliance on large cloud providers to run complex machine learning models has even led to a revival of Oracle as a go-to partner. The company initially lagged in the cloud server business but made a series of smart moves with regards to AI, primarily through its work with NVIDIA, which my partner Jason described in an essay about AI's impact on cloud. Oracle is currently working with a handful of leading startups, including Adept, Character, and Cohere. Network effects, best described by Metcalfe's law: your product or your service has network effects if each additional user of your product accrues more value to every other user. Messaging. So every new user that is added to the network brings more value to the entire network. Messaging apps like Slack and WhatsApp and social networks like Facebook are good examples of strong network effects. Operating systems like iOS, Android, Windows have strong network effects because as more customers use the OS, more applications are built on top of it. One of the most successful cloud businesses, AWS, has both the advantages of scale but also the power of network effects. More apps and services are built natively on AWS because that's where the customers and the data are. In turn, the ecosystem of solutions attract more customers and developers who build more apps that generate more data, continuing the virtuous cycle while driving down Amazon's cost through the advantages of scale. One of the most successful cloud businesses, AWS, has both the advantages of scale but also the power of network effects. More apps and services are built natively on AWS because that's where the customers and the data are. In turn, the ecosystem of solutions attract more customers and developers who build more apps that generate more data, continuing the virtuous cycle while driving down Amazon's cost through the advantages of scale. First movers who gain traction can build network effects. OpenAI is rushing to build one of the first network effects moat around their models. In particular, their function calling and plugin infrastructure architectures could turn OpenAI into the new AI cloud. The race to build network effects is still too early to declare any company the winner. In fact, there are many players extending this notion to create agents like Llama Index, LangChain, AutoGPT, Baby AGI, and many others, all with the aim to automate parts of your app, infrastructure, or life. Deep tech, IP, trade secrets, proprietary software methods is where most technology companies start. These trade secrets can include novel solutions to hard technical problems, new inventions, new processes, new techniques, and later patents that protect the developed IP. Over time, a company's IP may evolve from a specific engineering solution to accumulated operating knowledge or insight into a problem or process. Some of today's AI companies are building their own models, both produce applications and to provide them as a service to other startups. In this group include Adept, Inflection, Anthropic, Poolside, Cohere, and others. The trade-off, as I mentioned earlier, is astronomical cost to build these models. As we mentioned above, it will be interesting to see if the early foundation model pioneers like OpenAI, Google, and others can build a moat using their deep tech, or if they will ultimately be just another model in the face of open source and all the academic research and work in the AI field. High switching costs. Once a customer is using a product, you want it to become as difficult as possible for them to switch to a competitor. You can build the stickiness through standardization, from a lack of substitutes, through integrations to other apps and data sources, or because you have built an entrenched and valuable workflow that your customers depend on. Any of these can act as a form of lock-in that will make it difficult for customers to leave. It'll be interesting to see if there are switching costs at the model level or the application level. For example, Midjourney has millions of users using its diffusion model to generate images. How hard would it be for Midjourney to replace its own models with a third party model if a better one presented itself? Even if a better model did exist, how hard would it be for users to switch to a different application? Over the next few years, we will see companies try to build switching costs at both the app layer and potentially the model layer. At model layer, memory seems like the switching cost, or if you had to build the switching cost, memory is the switching cost. That is the only way. Like how Grok is now showing me that it can reference past queries and help enrich my current queries and make everything so relevant. That makes me think that, okay, so I'm using now ChatGPT for personal stuff, and I'm using Grok for work stuff, and that seems like a good way to diversify brand and customer loyalty. A strong brand can be a moat. With each positive interaction between your product and your customers, your brand advantage gets stronger over time, but brand strength can quickly evaporate if your customers lose trust in your product. As for many populations, it hasn't been earned yet. These early AI models can hallucinate with wrong answers or strange personas like Sydney from Bing. There will be a race to build a trustworthy AI and tools like Trulance to help make this real. It's crazy that Greylock is a big company and this is the kind of graphic they are using. Look at this. Look at this cloud. This is crazy. Old moats can be destroyed. Strong moats help companies survive through major platform shifts, but surviving should not be confused with thriving. For example, high switching costs can partly account for why mainframes and big iron systems are still around after all these years. Legacy businesses with deep moats may not be the high growth vehicles of their prime, but they are still generating profits. Companies need to recognize and react when they are in the midst of an industry wide transformation, lest they become victims of their own success. Switching cost as a moat. x86 server revenue didn't exceed mainframe and other big iron revenue till 2009. x86, non-x86 didn't exceed mainframe and other big iron revenue until 2009. Interestingly enough, we can see the platform shift to AI through the lens of the financial performance of NVIDIA, the primary provider of GPUs, versus Intel, the primary provider of CPUs. In 2020, NVIDIA overtook Intel as the most valuable provider of chips. In 2023, the company hit $1 trillion valuation. Moreover, these massive platform shifts like cloud and mobile are technology tidal waves that create openings for new players and enable founders to build paths over and around existing moats. Startup founders who succeed tend to execute a dual-pronged strategy: attack legacy player moats, simultaneously build their own defensible moats that ride the new wave. Attack legacy player moats, simultaneously build their own defensible moats that ride the new wave. AI is becoming the platform technology of today, and this new LLM wave could potentially disrupt the hierarchy among incumbents. Case in point, through the integration with OpenAI's ChatGPT, Microsoft's long maligned Bing may finally disrupt Google's search mode. For example, Facebook had the most entrenched social network, but Instagram built a mobile-first photo app that rode the smartphone wave to a 1 billion acquisition. The enterprise world SaaS companies like Salesforce are disrupting on-premise software companies like Oracle. Now with the advent of cloud, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud are creating a direct channel to the customer. These platform shifts can also change the buyer and end user. Within the enterprise, the buyer has moved from a central IT team to an office knowledge worker to someone with an iPhone to any developer with a GitHub account. Today, new LLM models have created a new category of user, prompt engineers. As generative AI models are being trained for use across numerous industries, the persona of users has expanded far and wide. Remains to be seen as AI becomes intrinsic to every product, what becomes of the durability of the prompt engineer persona. No more moats. No more moats. In this current wave of disruption, is it still possible to build sustainable moats? For founders, it may feel like every advantage you build can be replicated by another team down the street. Massive scale. New incumbents, the current generation of companies that are at massive scale have strong distribution networks, high switching costs, and strong brands working for them. Deep technology attacking hard problems is becoming a shallower moat. The use of open source is making it harder to monetize technology advances, while the use of cloud to deliver technology is moving defensibility to different parts of the product. Companies that focus too much on technology without putting it in context of a customer problem will be caught between a rock and a hard place, or as I like to say, between open source and a cloud place. Hmm. Incumbent technologies like Oracle's proprietary database are being attacked from open source alternatives like Hadoop and MongoDB, and in the cloud by Amazon Aurora, and innovations like Google Spanner. On the other hand, companies that build great customer experiences may find defensibility through the workflow of their software. Deep technology moats aren't completely gone and defensible. Business models can still be built around IP. If you pick a place in the technology stack and become the absolute best of breed solution, you can create a valuable company. However, this means picking a technical problem with few substitutes that requires hard engineering and needs operational knowledge to scale. Foundation models are one of today's deep tech IP modes. The owners of the foundation models release APIs and plugins while also continually working on even better products in-house. The relative ease at which developers can build on top of open source LLMs has led to an explosion of startups offering a range of products for specialized users. But it's already clear that most startups at this layer haven't created a sufficient mode. Not only can they be accused of having thin IP, essentially a simple app wrapper on ChatGPT, they also run the risk of facing direct competition from the foundational model provider, as we see playing out between OpenAI and Jasper. There's potentially a world where big models address most of the complex problems, but smaller models solve specific problems or power application at the edge, like your phone, car, or smart home. Market is favoring full stack companies. Technology is becoming an invisible component of a complete solution. No one cares about database. What database backs your favorite mobile app as long as your food is delivered on time. In the consumer world, Apple made the integrated full stack experience popular with the iPhone, with seamless integrated hardware with software. Reach customers directly in a cost-effective manner. Increasingly buying full stack technology in the form of SaaS applications instead of buying individual pieces of the tech stack and building their own apps. The emphasis on the whole application experience or the top of the technology stack is why I also evaluate companies through an additional framework, the stack of enterprise systems. Systems of record. At the bottom of the stack of systems is usually a database on top of which an application is built of the data and app. Systems of engagement, web, mobile, chat, systems of record, CRM, HCM, ERP. Okay, so engagement is consumer, systems of record is basically everything backend, front end and backend. If the data and app are a critical business function, it becomes a system of record. There are three major systems of record in an enterprise: your customers, your employees, and your assets. CRM owns your customers, HCM owns your employees, and ERP financials owns your assets. Generations of companies have been built around owning a system of record, and every wave produced a new winner. In CRM, we saw Salesforce replace Siebel as the system of record for customer data, and Workday replaces Oracle PeopleSoft for employee data. Workday has also expanded into financial data. Other applications can be built around a system of record but are usually not as valuable as the actual system of record. For example, marketing automation companies like Marketo and Responses built big businesses around CRM but never became as strategic or as valuable as Salesforce. Foundation models do not replace existing systems of record, but they are a tool for unlocking value and understanding across all the system of record. Today, there are a handful of foundation models. As I touched on earlier, it's still up for debate whether the world evolves towards a handful of large models, which are then distilled or pruned to be used in all situations, or there's a market for similar smaller models. In either case, these models are the crucial element to what we call systems of intelligence 6 years ago in the new modes. Engagement. Interfaces between users and system of record, powerful businesses because they control the end user interactions. Tied together where the mainframe and terminal were essentially the same product. The client server were ushered in ushered in a class of companies that tried to own your desktop only to be disrupted by a generation of browser-based companies, only to be succeeded by mobile-first companies. Current generation of companies wanting to own the system of engagement include Slack, Alexa, every other speech, text, conversational US startup. WeChat has become a dominant system of engagement. Is now a platform for everything from e-commerce to games. If it sounds like systems of engagement turn over more than systems of record, it's probably because they do. The successive generations of systems of engagement don't necessarily disappear, but instead users keep adding new ways to interact with their applications. In a multi-channel world, owning the system of engagement is most valuable if you control most of the end user engagement, or are a cross-channel system that reaches users wherever they are. Perhaps the most strategic advantage of being a system of engagement is that you can coexist with several systems of record and collect all the data that passes through your product. Over time, you can evolve your engagement position into an actual system of record using all the data you have accumulated. 6 years ago, highlighted chat as a new system of engagement. Slack and Microsoft Teams attempted, but fell short to become the primary system of engagement of the enterprise with a chat front end for enterprise apps. This chat first vision has not reached fruition yet, but LLMs could change that. Instead of opening an app like Uber or Instacart to order a car or deliver us groceries, we could ask our AI agent to order us dinner or plan a vacation. In a future where everyone has their own AI assistant, all engagement could feel like messaging apps. AI-based voice chat systems like Siri and Alexa will be replaced by intelligent chat systems like Pi, the personal intelligence agent developed by Inflection AI. OpenAI's plugin and function calling announcements are building a new way to build and distribute apps, effectively making GPT a new platform. In this world, chat would become the front door to essentially everything. Our daily system of engagement will be interesting to see how the user experience with AI applications evolve in the near future. While chat seems to be very popular today, we expect to see multimodal interaction models create new systems of engagement beyond just chat. The new modes. I still believe that systems of super intelligence are the new modes. What is system of intelligence and why is it so defensible? What makes a system of intelligence valuable is that it typically crosses multiple data sets and multiple systems of record. Predict end user behavior, churn, LTV, or just serve more timely content. You can build intelligence on a single data source or a single system of record, but that position becomes harder to defend against the vendor that owns the data. For a startup to thrive around incumbents like Oracle and SAP, you need to combine the data with other data sources to create value for your customer. Incumbents will be advantaged on their own data. For example, Salesforce is building a system of intelligence. Einstein is starting their own system of record. CRM. ChatGPT, Bard, Pi. Bard. Wow, there was a time when Google was called Bard. Google's Gemini was called Bard. System of intelligence. AI app infra. System of record. GPT, Palm 2, Inflection, Anthropic, Cohere. The new modes are just the old modes. But the rise of AI exciting in many ways, we have come full circle in a quest to build new modes. It turns out that the old modes matter more than ever. If the Google we have no modes prediction is true and AI models enable any developer with access to GPT or Llama to build systems of intelligence, then how do we build a sustainable business? The value of the application is how to deliver the value. Workflows, integration with data and other applications, brand trust, network effects, scale, and a cost efficiency all become drivers of economic value and the creator of moats. Companies that are capable to build systems of intelligence will still need to master go to market. They will have to perfect not just product market fit, but product go to market fit. AI doesn't change how startups market, sell, or partner. It reminds us that despite the technology underpinning each generation of technology, the fundamentals of business building remain the same. The new modes are the old modes. I don't think there's a risk of fatigue at the moment. We are witnessing the beginning of the next great technology wave, and excitement is understandably high. Next foundation models have pushed ahead to be the most transformative advancement in AI. Case in point, several companies from the previous generation of ML AI companies are at risk of being leapfrogged by the recent advances enabled by LLMs. That is so true. That is so true. There might be so many companies who are working towards. There were so many companies working on ML, AI, RLHF, all that stuff, and they were just leapfrogged by LLMs. They are nowhere to be known, and that is crazy. That is crazy. Apple is in a very similar position right now, where I believe, I don't know, I haven't read this new article that Apple, or new research paper that Apple came out with, but it seems like they are kind of criticizing the reasoning models that, hey, they're not really good, and they announced Apple Intelligence, but they haven't truly, as people call it, vaporware. It hasn't truly reached its potential that people thought. It is better than Siri, but it's not there yet where it would work, but it's competing with Llama, Gemini, ChatGPT.